How could you create a more mindful working environment? How could you create more mindful working practices on the basis that actually if I'm less stressed, less reactive, more responsive, then actually we can create a better working experience for each other here. But also, dare I say, we're also going to be more productive as well. We start to recognize that my inner state is affecting the way that I'm responding in every moment. It's affecting my relationship. It's affecting my decisions. Another camp of people who, are recognizing that mindfulness is actually a fantastic tool for professional development was going to actually increase their capacity to be more present, authentic, have to organize their thinking better, to make better responses, be more emotionally intelligent. And I always feel the great thing about mindfulness is that if I can just get people to actually start practicing, they're going to get...
I think we want, above all else, to be seen and accepted. And a lot of what we do is kind of like hoping for that. And then I'm kind of messing up the formula and then hoping for you to give me the answer as if it was the correct formula. I don't recognize my own part to play in it. And I came by it honestly, but now it's up to me to kind of figure out where, I might not be putting in the numbers that I think I'm putting into the equation. For anyone listening now, I'm coming at this from a place of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, you can't hide. You're very exposed in the jungle. You have to figure out what your blind spots are, figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, determine the best ROI for your resources. Do I want to invest in becoming good at this skill, or is it better for me to network with Stephen and Karl and then develop in the way that I'm good and then contribute more value to them that way? And you have to figure out a lot. And so I think it helps to kind of look in your shadow and look in your, areas that you might not be helping yourself. Like there are authentic pieces of you, but they're not they're not put out in the way that you want sometimes. And that can affect the way that you develop your product or your service. That can affect the way that you have relationships with your suppliers, your team, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really good to be aligned, integrated, heart and mind, and connected. And it might sound a little woo-woo, but I do believe love is almost always the answer, if not always the answer. Of course, use with critical thinking. Like sometimes you need to defend first and love later. But I think that generally speaking, a lot of the people that I thought were bad or I don't know, just I felt discomfort around, I think I was projecting some shame and negative energy in the subconscious that I was unaware of, and perhaps triggering something in them that was then coming back to me as like a mirror. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share where I'm coming at this conversation from.
Thank you.
It's really great, David, and I relate to everything you say. There's heaps there to fish out. We could probably do a podcast for 3 days on everything that you raised there. And I'm totally with you and aligned with you that the investigation of the shadow or the awareness of the shadow is vital. Vital if I don't want to screw things up or stuff things up in my business, in my entrepreneurial endeavor. Why? Because I am the entrepreneurial endeavor. You are the entrepreneurial endeavor. So if I'm not aware of those aspects of my personality, those aspects of my psyche that may corrupt things, may cause me to self-sabotage, like you said, may cause me to stuff up relationships, then I'm sailing in the dark. I can very easily hit rocks. I can very easily hit rocks because I'm not aware of them. It's all dark. So therefore, but as Stephen was saying as well, by shining some light on the shadow, and so by shadow, what I mean again for people listening is those elements of my psyche that I am A, unaware of, or B, aware of, but don't like so much that I'm trying to push them away or pretend they don't exist. So, we started this conversation about people pleasing. That would be an element of my shadow. So not being aware of it means it runs the show. The shadow runs the show because it's acting in the dark, and it's acting in the dark. The great thing about mindfulness practice is it facilitates that awareness of the shadow. So the shadow comes into the light. So I can see those rocks that I might otherwise not see and crash my ship on, run aground on in terms of my business. So mindfulness facilitates an exploration of the shadow. And related to that, and I think you're absolutely right, the heart of it all is the capacity for self-love. The more I love myself, it's a paradoxical. The more I love myself, the more I'm willing to encounter the shadow, because that's what love is. Love doesn't exclude anything. Love doesn't say, oh, I love everything about myself apart from the shadow, or I love everything about myself except for the parts I don't love. Love means loving every element about myself, including the parts I don't love, including the parts I don't accept. And so by fostering that self-love, by starting from a place of self-love, then it's okay for me, even just a little bit, to tiptoe in the dark, tiptoe into the shadows, see what's there. And it's not the scary monster I may have otherwise thought by not going there or pushing it away. And it also allows, as Stephen said, other people to bring it up, other people to talk about things that they may see in me as a business owner or as a human being that, as you put it, may not be helpful. And rather than me needing to fight or flight, get upset or defend or ignore, I can hear it, listen to it, take it on board and understand that there fundamentally is nothing wrong with me. I love myself enough to allow somebody to talk to me for my own well-being and point some of these things out. And so it's the perfect mix, really. Internally, I'm willing to encounter my shadow because it's not threatening anymore. Why? Because I love all parts of myself, including the shadow and including those parts I don't love. So it's not threatening anymore. I'm aware of it. I can navigate those rocky shores without going aground. But also, and you touched on this, there's the added benefit, and because in all businesses, there's always relationships, whether it be with suppliers, whether it be with customers, whether it be in the networking sphere. It's all based on relationships, without a shadow of a doubt. The bonus fruit with it is that relationships get transformed as well. They become far more intimate, and the relationships are not a threat, and they're not going to be corrupted by me being unaware of the personality traits that may otherwise get in the way of the relationship. So just to sum up, focusing on the shadow from a place of self-love, which mindfulness and meditation facilitate, allows me to trip myself up less as a human being, as an entrepreneur, and also allows other people to be able to show me the areas where I may otherwise trip up as well. So that's how it works.
That makes a lot of sense. You both are going to know parts of me that I can't see, like at the very least, the back of my head. So if I make it in a way that you feel uncomfortable or just inconvenienced to tell me the truth, there's a smaller percentage chance that I'm going to know what the back of my head looks like, for example. And so it makes sense to be authentic, myself, flawed, and you feel that you're not being judged or criticized by telling me your opinions or observations, and then that ironically makes me stronger. And it's like you said, it's all about the relationships, and that makes a lot of sense. And I like how you kind of tied that into what you both do with mindfulness and help us understand where mindfulness comes into the workplace and perhaps life in general. But as an entrepreneur, I think there's a conflation almost of personal and professional development, because it very much feeds into, your work is your life, but it's less clear. It's not like a 9 to 5 usually where you clock out and no one contacts you. So I think it's really important to what you're doing and to kind of understand that it's not maybe as much of a luxury as some people may believe. For example, healthcare, often they have pretty strict limits on mental health. I had a conversation actually earlier today with a young mental health coach, and his clients are like twice his age, and he felt a little bit I don't want to put words in his mouth, but so I might be misquoting here, but my memory is something along the lines of like insecure, or like it's out of place for him to be helping people twice his age. And I asked him, if you were a heart surgeon and you were performing heart surgery on someone twice your age, would you think that was inappropriate? And he's like, no, not if, I'm licensed and stuff. And I was like, so then what is the disconnect with the heart and the mind? And it's funny, like and I want to put that same question to you both, if you've thought of it at all. What is the disconnect between a gunshot wound and a hole in the soul?
Oh, right. Well, that's a great question. I suppose, there's that thing of, if you can't kick it, it doesn't exist. So I think that, the last few hundred years, we've become, more aware of the material realm, particularly in the West, and probably moved away from, the realm of into the intuitive realm or the feeling realm, much more in terms of like, let's just figure out how the concrete world works. And we've made fantastic advances in that. Like, for instance, what we're doing right now, the technology is a good sign of that our ancestors wouldn't have been able to do. But one of the sacrifices, I think, particularly from looking at the 20th century, maybe, is like we sort of left the inner world of thoughts and feelings and intuition and spirit, has been sort of like devalued in the face of materialistic progress. And I think that we're kind of redressing that balance now. So I'm with you. So somehow we might think that investing in something concrete and practical and material is more important than investing in personal professional development, in terms of developing myself as a human being in the way that we're talking, which, the simplest way of summing that up would be, I want to, increase my capacity to give and receive love, which, is a core human need, perhaps our greatest human need. And yet, we can sort of think that's got absolutely nothing to do with your working life, for instance, whereas what we're considering here is it's got everything to do with it. If you consider that, to be human is to be relational, and that the criteria of success, a real criteria of success as a human being, is how many people let you in and how many people you can let in. And not that it's a numbers game, but just that that the our core needs being met. Actually, we know now that that is related to health, both physical health, mental health, spiritual health, is all about connection. So, I think that it's fantastic that more and more we're joining the dots and seeing ourselves as human and understanding, that our needs are core to the way we live our lives. And for me and Karl, we're very much values based in our approach to our work, and so. We want to make a difference, and we both really value the difference that mindfulness can make to people.
When you spoke, Stephen, I was thinking of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, how you mentioned the material development and technology and stuff. It's this beautiful, ornate structure that wasn't built on a robust foundation. It's like now we're addressing it. At first, it looked like we were going dystopian for a while, with algorithms run amok and our siloed thinking. And now it looks like it might be going full circle, where we're just more transparent. We know a lot more about, the truth hits you in the bones. So it's like we're starting to see cross-generationally, cross-culturally, the truth of this and who we are as humans. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. And it gives me a sense of optimism, actually, about our species and that the adaptability of it. I'd like to understand, both for the audience and just, for myself too. I imagine it's case by case, but could you give an overview of what mindfulness looks like when you work with either professionals or businesses?
Stephen, you're probably best to respond to that one.
What does it look like? So practically, if we're rolling out a mindfulness program or an intervention in the workplace, what would that actually look like?
If you're able to talk about it at like a high level, like I'm thinking almost like a consultant, where you go and you ask questions, you figure out where the pain points are, and then you have a framework and then put together, this is my timeline, this is my budget, and this is what we're doing. Is it like that? I mean, I honestly have no idea.
Sure. So, people come to us normally, so they're already wanting what we've got, or they may be driven by their team or their organization actually putting their hand up and saying, we would like some mindfulness training, or we would like some mindfulness. The awareness that, particularly for groups there's kind of two groups, largely there's the kind of the people who are struggling with stress, overload, difficulties, and actually wanting some tools that are going to assist them to reduce the results of stress. Then we've got another camp of people who, are recognizing that mindfulness is actually a fantastic tool for professional development that's going to actually, increase their capacity to be more present, authentic, have to organize their thinking better, to make better responses, be more emotionally intelligent, and more creative. So they're looking at like the sort of positive end of what mindfulness can do in terms of when you're actually increasing the health of your mind. But also, we're all, then we've got the other camp, which is recognizing, well, actually, if I'm experiencing a lot of unhealthy mind states, which are affecting my body and my feelings, then mindfulness can be something that can boost my resilience and help me to be more regulated and back in balance. So those people will come to us because they're wanting something of that. They're wanting something of what mindfulness can offer. And yes, we would normally always have a conversation with them to drill down and find out exactly what it is that they want to get out of the training. And also, some other things like, have the people that we're going to be working with got any previous experience of mindfulness? And do they have a commitment to a well-being program, and how we might fit into what they've already got going, so we can add value, make sure that, we're aware that they are a business. And so, we realize that people come to work for a reason, and it's not simply to, pour their hearts out to each other or heal their souls, but at the same time, we don't want to completely exclude the fact that, feeling connected and appreciated in the workplace and fit, is incredibly important, and the way that we invite each other into relationship. So attention is everything. And then on that basis, we have various kind of standard programs that we can roll out, like introduction to mindfulness and, learning it, from the beginning, whether it's for a larger group, a shorter program, whether people want to make a commitment to perhaps learning it over a period of time. 4 to 6 weeks would be our kind of minimum optimum that we might offer in terms of actually upskilling, or an ongoing relationship, perhaps once a month, online programs. It might be mindful. It might be mindful leadership. Sometimes we might be working with senior people who are actually wanting mindfulness to enhance their leadership practice, or it may be more organization wide, and the kind of the spectrum is kind of broader. In terms of the actual nuts and bolts, what that would look like is that we present a little bit up front about the theory of mindfulness, because not everybody really knows what it is. They might have heard of it, but they don't actually really know what it is. And so also we want to sort of also flesh out what it isn't as well. We don't tend to use the word meditation, for instance, because sometimes people think that, if we start meditating, we're going to go to heaven on a flying carpet or something like that. And so we kind of want to,
if only,
sort of, we want to kind of ground it in like, now this is not about going away somewhere. This is actually about being more fully aware of where you are, where you feel yourself to be, feet on the ground, actually present moment, be really, really awake and aware of just what you're feeling right now, without meeting ourselves with an agenda that somehow I should change or be different or even improve, as like Karl was saying. Even that kind of gets in the way of mindfulness practices. I mean, people sometimes come to mindfulness because, of course, they want to be a better human being. They'd like to be more free
right.
of stress. But actually, we say, great, your motivation has brought you here, and now you need to let go of even that and just meet yourself in the present moment in a more raw way, and your psyche will reveal to you the shadow aspects and what's needed to be balanced. So we want to be kind of available to receive that information. If I've got too much of an agenda, then I can miss that vital information. So we talk about, this is what mindfulness is. Here's the mechanism of mindfulness. Here are some of the benefits from a research point of view, that, it's reasonable to expect that you will actually see benefits to your health right across the board through mindfulness, an increase in the resources and capacity. And then pretty quickly we'll move from theory to practice. It's just like going into the gym. I mean, I could talk to you about the the benefits of exercise to your body all day long. But actually, we're sitting in a chair, and doesn't matter how much we talk about it, you're not going to get 1% of benefit to your health. In fact, the longer we sit, you're probably going to be damaging your health if you don't move around enough. So I say to people, talking about mindfulness is great. It's a fascinating topic, the neuroscience of it, the fact that ancient people were aware, the ancient wisdom traditions used mindfulness, but actually, we've got to cut to the chase here. And if you're actually going to get the benefits, we've got to start doing it. So we, in all of our programs, we pretty quickly are leaning forward into mindfulness practices, which will guide people through. Initially, they're ones which are about stabilizing body, mind. It's like learning how to focus attention, get a little bit more control over attention so that we can actually be more regulated. And, and then from that place, and we're not trying to perfect anything there, but then from that place, we then open up self-awareness in the present moment. And that's when you start working with what's emerging. So rather than actually trying to hold the body in any particular way, we actually, have that ability to just simply open up and start noticing, what are you reacting to right now? Where is your attention going? How are you talking to yourself? How's your body feeling? What do you feel safe right now? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel flat and a bit numbed off? Simple stuff, and yet actually profound, because this is just right under our nose all the time. So then from that place, people are starting to go on a journey of self-awareness, which might sound perhaps like, a kind of a very interior experience. But as we were saying, we start to recognize that my inner state is affecting the way that I'm responding in every moment. It's affecting my relationship. It's affecting my decisions. As they say, if you're not present, you don't know what's going on, or what you pay attention to. Is your world. The reality is what I'm paying attention to right now. If I'm living in a mind that's overwhelmed with a lot of anxiety and worry, then that's the world I'm living in. So, and in that sort of more developed part of mindfulness practice, we're also putting in some tools like self-compassion is a huge one. So as Karl was saying, it's just something about the nature of being human, isn't it? It's like, it's pretty impossible to get through the first sort of 10, 15 years of 20 years of life without having your heart broken or experiencing grief and loss, or not being in situations where your needs are not being fully met. And, it shapes us. These experiences can shape us profoundly. So, part of mindfulness practice is actually, helping to undo and soften some of those knots through acceptance practices. So that, and through putting aside judgment and actually recognizing that my practice needs to be more and more inclusive. So whatever's emerging in me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm actually making a seat for that in my heart, which, as you were saying, David, is the work of love. I wouldn't necessarily to expand that kind of narrative too much if I was working, in a mainstream corporation, but it doesn't really matter, because the words are just to sort of seduce people. It's the practice that leads it. And I always feel the great thing about mindfulness is that, well, if I can just get people to actually start practicing, they're going to get the whole thing sooner or later, and they will go as deep into it as they feel to. Of course, as you deepen in more and more, you would start coming down to these sort of deeper values that we hold and we feel in our heart. And it's wonderful when people start connecting to that for themselves, not because we're giving them any kind of philosophy. We're just inviting them into their humanity in a kind of a safe way. And also, the practices are workplace appropriate and workplace specific. So we're all sitting in chairs, we've got our eyes open, we're not, lighting candles or ringing bells or anything. Like, we don't need that stuff, because it's like, you're the real deal. If you could just sustain a quality of self-awareness, we will deepen. It's the magic of the mind, is that we get pulled or invited into our depth because of that core need we have to come home to ourselves and to feel authentic. It's all based on attraction. We're not trying to push people into this. You actually, that's the the way that practice unfolds. And we'll have a lot of sharing. So, of course, it's important when we're running a program to get people to start inquiring, like, how is your mindfulness practice? How can this be? How could you create a more mindful working environment? How could you create more mindful working practices on the basis that actually, if I'm less stressed, less reactive, more responsive, then actually we can create a better working experience for each other here. But also, dare I say, we're also going to be more productive as well. I would say we're going to make better decisions. We're going to be smarter. We're going to be responsive to opportunities that are arising. We're going to be adaptive, and we need to be adaptive because the world's changing so quickly now. So like I love to develop that understanding that so many of the qualities of mindfulness will assist you to be on the front foot as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, or as anyone in any position in an organization. That these qualities are not like soft qualities that are all to do with relaxation and health and all that. No, these are actually hard qualities, because who you are speaks so loudly that no one else can hear a word. Can't hear a word you're saying, because they're getting you. And I kind of think it's so true, as Karl was saying, that it's all about relationships, isn't it? So that's human life, and the state of me. If I'm stressed, you're going to feel it. If I'm angry, you're going to feel it. If I'm feeling peaceful and loving, it has a profound effect upon the relationship, for better or for worse.
Well, it's all about relationships, but I believe it begins and ends with yourself and a relationship with yourself, because any love or whatever that I might be hoping for from either of you can only really attach if I'm loving myself to begin with. There's so much to touch on there, Steve, and thank you for sharing that. I guess I'll kind of go in reverse order. What you mentioned about you don't use candles or incense or any kind of change of the environment. It is the environment that they inhabit on their day-to-day. I think is really great, because it's more like a lifestyle. It's something they don't need to go to a special place to practice it. It reminds me of, in my tourism days in Japan, we sometimes had these retreats, these Buddhist retreats at a temple, and there's a Zazen Buddhist retreat, a meditation in the morning. And it's really peaceful, really great. If anyone's in Japan and wants to try that, I'd recommend it. It's you've had this experience where you're meditating in the morning or anytime, but it just happened to be really quiet because it was dawn. And it was almost like the ears could see colors. It was so like because it was like an hour long. And I don't know if I was like imagining, but it's like, this is wild. Like after you get past the initial kind of first couple of minutes of agony, it was pretty magical. Anyway, the monk, or the Buddhist monk who was guiding us, said, as you develop, you don't have to do it like in a temple. You can do it on the crowded train. You can do it at a baseball game. You can do it. And I was like, whoa, really? Because I always thought you had to be in a special place in order to do this special thing. And, just ignorance kind of. And now it's like, no, you can do this everywhere. So I think it's great that you're doing that in a natural environment.
It's absolutely the case. And, like I think the saying goes, wherever you go, you are there. And so the place you practice is where you are, and you take yourself everywhere. So you can be constantly practicing.
You guys are kind of like artists, I guess, in a sense as well, when you're managing, or conductors maybe, where you're managing a symphony and everyone's at a different place for a variety of reasons. And I imagine you mentioned like productivity. You don't want to necessarily unnecessarily trigger someone, for example. You want to have it be mostly productive, but also perhaps give them the tools to fish, or teach them kind of how to maybe continue doing it, and they can get to know themselves. And it reminded me, Stephen, as you were talking also, of one of my favorite authors is a Japanese author, Haruki Murakami. There's this book he wrote called The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, and he has this really like colorful way of writing. And there's one point in there I remember where he said, like, when you're feeling down, he likes to just go down as deep as possible to the bottom of the well and just sit in that emotion and just not hide from it, and just say, like, where is this? Like, take me to wherever you want me to go, and just process it kind of. And I just remember feeling there's this instinct to kind of run away from the feeling. I don't want to feel that. And there's that discomfort, like you mentioned, Stephen and Karl, as we were talking earlier on, where you're so used to pushing it away in different ways, and it's like keeps a cycle going, kind of, instead of just sitting, accepting, and kind of processing it, and maybe leveling up, for lack of a better term. And that kind of reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you both. Again, going back to leadership and perhaps entrepreneurship in a way. Sometimes I get like blindsided by what I would call shame attacks. And it could be like nervousness standing on stage, but sometimes it could just be nothing at all. At least that I identify. It's like I've not done anything that would be like particularly shameful or triggering. And it's just like, where's it? Like yesterday I was super kind of like productive, and I felt more or less like, things are going well. And then like this morning I woke up and I was just in a little bit of a funk, and I was like, I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I called my brother and I was like asking him, I was just kind of like, seeing if he'd been through something similar, and just talk to him about like how I'm trying to like label and like identify these feelings and just kind of watch where they go, like watch, kind of similar to maybe what you were talking about, Stephen, just see like, where is this? Who is this? What is it? What does this need? I'm not saying it like in a way to suggest that I know. I'm just, I'm kind of asking for you, is there something, if someone is in a similar state, let's say they're talking to a boardroom, or they're talking on stage, or doing nothing at all, let's say driving a car or walking, and they have some kind of, for lack of a better word, shame attack, where they just feel kind of heavy and icky and like a bad object. Is there some way that, like, for mindfulness, you can kind of just observe that and kind of, I don't know, center? And because I seem to be okay now, but I don't know how it happened. And if you have any light to shed on that, I'd love to hear it, and perhaps my audience would as well.
I'd love to jump in there, and I'm sure Stephen would have lots to say about this as well, because this is one of our favorite topics, and it's my favorite element of mindfulness. Why? Because I have and do feel so much shame. So I do totally relate to what you say there, David. My experience in teaching mindfulness for sort of 10 years plus now is there's not a human being on the planet that doesn't experience it. The problem is, though, there's lots of problems, but one problem is that we don't talk about it as openly and vulnerably as you have, which even that, talking about it, normalizes it and can help. So it's like the shame gets compounded by shame. So I feel shame, and then I feel like there's something wrong with me, and I'm ashamed of the shame, and I get further and further and further away from myself, from life, and that horrible place.
Like a chain reaction.
Really isolating, and I feel like I'm the worst schmuck bag on the planet, and I don't like it at all as my reaction or response. And it's really uncomfortable and deeply human. Again, that's one way to work with it, is just remind yourself that every single person experiences this. It's a quality of being human. And related to that, and this is what I'll do when I notice it and feel it, remind myself that I'm not wrong. You're not wrong to feel shame. No one's wrong to feel shame. Not wrong, full stop. And what I find is when I remember that, and I literally will say it to myself, okay, so first step, something feels strange. This is shame. So that's the second step, is realize, this is shame, like you did. Shame, this is what I'm feeling. Then third step, that's okay. That's okay. Remind myself that is okay. I'm allowed to feel shame. I'm absolutely allowed to feel shame. So creating that space that Stephen talked about, then remind myself there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong to feel this. And that's love. That process is love. And what I find when I do that is the shame doesn't become a problem. So the shame is allowed to be there. The shame's just an element of my psyche. It's just a part of you. Nothing wrong with it unless we make it wrong. And I find that is hugely helpful.
Thank you. Steve, do you have anything to add?
Wonderful. Well, I love what you said there, Karl, and you completely, nailed it. I also experience shame, and as you're saying, Karl, who doesn't? I recognize that it comes up when I'm getting close to places in myself where there's pain. So that often it, behind the shame is a place where I'm feeling isolated, frightened, anxious, abandoned, and for somehow, normally in relationship, that place has got triggered within me. So the one, I won't go speak at length, but the one thing I just want to respond to, David, in your question, you sort of said, with shame, how can you use mindfulness? Is this something like you kind of observe it, And I just want to sort of say that mindfulness sometimes gets misunderstood as somehow kind of like just objectively observing whatever's going on, thoughts and feelings in a kind of detached manner. And my journey with mindfulness is recognizing more like what Karl's saying, that actually I wouldn't just, it's about the response. And so when the shame comes up, it requires soothing, it requires relieving, it requires loving. It's places in myself that normally the pain is there because these are places that haven't been loved. And so now in my adult capacity, I can give it those places what they never got. So it's very much a response rather than just simply like observing. There is a cognitive aspect to it, though, and the one cognitive aspect that I'm aware of is that when I'm ashamed, I actually think that I'm not an okay person, and that you're going to think I'm not an okay person. You're going to see me as a loser or a failure, and therefore I will hide that from you. Which means, it's going to corrupt our relationship and create misunderstandings because you don't know what the hell's going on with me. I find that cognitively, I have to sort of talk to myself sometimes and recognize, like with my partner, for instance, if I can let her know I'm feeling a bit of shame right now because I'm feeling really quite vulnerable and a little bit anxious. She loves it because I'm giving her information from the inside about what's actually going on for me. And actually, she doesn't reinforce it like, well, yes, of course you are a bit of an idiot and a bit of a loser. Far from it, because authenticity and vulnerability is so attractive with people who love each other that it's like, oh, I'm feeling more of you now. How wonderful! Increases my sense of closeness. But from the shame point of view, I'm thinking, don't go there, hide it away, and of course lose the opportunity for more intimacy and more connection to actually happen. So I have to sort of talk to myself, as like Karl was saying, that it's okay to feel shame. You haven't done anything wrong. It's okay. Keep going.
Thank you for sharing that.
I think there's a massive opportunity both for personal transformation and even global transformation by even just looking at shame and allowing it more and more and more and more. I think that feel that shame can be very violent. So when I feel my shame and then I judge myself around shame, I feel that it's a violence, like I'm hitting myself. And equally, if I want to, and it lessens me. I feel like I'm just a little maggot, a little blimmin' ant that's about to be crushed. It really lessens me. You're not going to get the best of me, and I'm not going to get the best of myself. That's what it's like. And it's insidious, as Stephen said, because it can be there since childhood, and this overlay of making it wrong. Anyway, the other thing I notice about shame is that it's a marvelous way to control and manipulate people and get power over people. So if I want to get power over you, the path of least resistance, the easiest way to do it is to shame you out, because it feels so horrible and no one talks about it. So it's almost like a secret weapon that's out there that people are doing to one another. And it does a huge, huge, huge amount of damage as we're talking about. So to be able to disarm that is amazing. It cures and solves so much of the friction I feel internally, so much of the self-hatred, the self-condemnation I might feel internally. And it also means I can let you, David, you, Stephen, and anyone I meet be exactly who you are, because there's no shame. It really doesn't matter as long as I'm more okay with myself. And that includes these shame elements. Allow it to be there, feel it, make it okay. Then I can make it okay in you, and it doesn't get in the way. Then I don't need to control you because I don't need anything from you. No one needs to, and it'll be very difficult for someone to control me because I'm more okay in myself. So this, it's such a wonderful conversation because there's so much payback in this. It's a great example of an area of a very human area of our life that we can start to observe, feel, allow, and love, that will pay tremendous dividends, real, palpable, tacit, tremendous dividends, and create peace as well, inner peace and outer peace.
I fully agree, Karl. Again, the truth, like hitting you in a certain way, that's resonates very much with what I've felt. I think it's, very much that would lead to peace and prosperity, and like a positive flywheel or virtuous cycle where you're experiencing more of life and you need less external validation or proof that you're good enough, because you're just present and enjoying. And by being present and enjoying, it's like there's so much that you could appreciate, like the flavors of food, the textures, the scents, the views, the friendships, the unexpected jokes. Like there's so much information in any given second of any given day that you're kind of blinded by, because you're thinking, okay, I need this thing to prove that I'm good enough. And then someone like took that from me, or I lost it, or whatever, you know what I mean? And it gets out of, when I was a tour guide, I forgot if I told you this story, but I kind of accidentally wound up in Japan. I wanted to go to London to pick up a British accent, because as an American, I thought I'd sound smarter if I had a British accent. And friends from undergrad said, why don't you come to Japan with us? Because when you can always go to London, but what other opportunity are you going to have to go to Japan? And I was like, all right, fair enough. So I went, but I had no plan. I had no checklist. I didn't know like what we're doing. I didn't know anything. And accidentally I was present, because I didn't have like a to-do list. And that made me fall in love with the place. It could have been anywhere, I think. It was just the fact that I was present. And that's what I told my clients when I was a tour guide, is just, it's great that you book this trip and you want to see Mount Fuji and this and that. But to the extent that you're able, and I told them this story, I would recommend just kind of pushing that all aside and just experiencing it like day by day as you experience it. And I deliberately planned a couple empty days for them to wander. And I told them those are going to be the best days of your trip. Trust me. And they were. And it's, some hole in the wall restaurant, some conversation they had unexpectedly, like that's life, and it's infinite richness. And I feel like when you can process the shame, see each other, accept each other, there's no limit to the growth that our species can accomplish. I know that's a little bit woo-woo, but I really think it's more true than not.
It absolutely is. And what you develop is 100% a greater intimacy with yourself. And that comes back to as well to what you were saying before, and Stephen was saying before, about not needing a temple to practice in, not needing a room to practice, a certain room or format to practice in. Mindfulness and meditation are fundamentally about being in your own company, meeting yourself. And also, one of the myths, and you touched on this as well, David, one of the myths around mindfulness and meditation is that it needs to be austere and rigid, and it's kind of sterile or strict. And yet my experience of mindfulness and meditation is that it's the reverse. It's very life-affirming, very fluid, and also, which you've touched on a couple of times, really pleasurable. The more present I am for pleasure, the better it is. And also what you talked about, that removing maybe of the barriers between yourself and the external environment, where sounds become music in their own right. The sounds of the birds become music in their own rights. Colors become more vibrant. The senses become alive. It's a very, not always, often, a very pleasurable and enjoyable modality and process.
Do you have any like anecdotes, either yourselves or some clients that you've helped, that you can touch on as far as the transformation possible with mindfulness? I mean, I can imagine. I was just curious if you had any stories you'd like to share.
Gosh, so many. I mean, I'm aware of the confidentiality, so I don't, it's not, I would not normally be talking about, people's experience, but just reflecting on that, certainly the proof of the pudding, see it over and over again. I'm amazed, because as Karl mentioned, part of my work of mindfulness, and which I did a lot of prior to coming to packaging, and offering mindfulness to the workplace, but something I still do is to run mindfulness retreats, which are like immersion experiences, residential courses that Karl and I are doing one in Australia in June, and this is more for people who want to take a deep dive. So then what we're looking at here, we're not looking at a 1 hour session or, a 6-week course. We're looking at 6 days of where we're in an environment where we're silent, you'd be aware of retreats, and we're getting up early and having like a meditation, a mindfulness meditation before dawn or before breakfast, and then through the day. Simple practices, but the encouragement is to just live and breathe it. While you're eating, when you're in the shower, whatever, just stay with your mindfulness practice. And it's incredible. I'm always amazed that you can get a group of people will come together who often don't even know each other, and we'll sit in the room together. And it's incredibly simple. It's not complex. It's the simplicity which is so powerful. And normally within a few days, everybody has deepened into themselves. It's sometimes in spite of themselves, and often people might, go through a little bit of a crisis where, like day one or day two, someone might come to me for a one-on-one session. I say, how's it going? And they'll say, it's not working. And I always think, I'm so curious. Like, tell me more. What's not working? Because I'm thinking, we're sitting here. I'm encouraging you to breathe, to relax, to be present. What bit of that's not working? And that's where it always gets interesting. Like, well, I'm supposed to be feeling really peaceful and loving, but actually I'm just feeling really angry or really depressed, or I just want to leave. And so they'll be saying, oh, okay, so these are parts of yourself that you don't want to offer relationship to these parts of yourself because you've got an agenda that you should be somewhere else rather than where you are, even though everyone knows that the mindfulness practice is always saying, be here now, stay present, just to trust emergence. And yet it's very hard to do. When the push comes to a shove, the practice will push us into these places in ourselves, which is like, will you relax? Will you consent to relax with yourself in this moment, or do you have some objection to, like, oh, I refuse to relax, or I can't relax right now because you fill that bit in. But as you deepen into mindfulness, we come up against this stuff, and the beauty, and I kind of feel that it's all from the inside. I think that as we know from emerging sort of neuroscience, is that there are these sort of deep, what they call deep homeostatic corrective mechanisms that sit deep within our nervous system, which want to move us towards regulation. The whole body mind wants to move towards well-being, and so often we're the one who are resisting that, or we've been tricked out of our intelligence that would help to keep us in that place through life experience. And really, the mindfulness is like bringing it all back into balance. And so I'm amazed. It doesn't matter who it is. Sometimes the bigger the resistance that someone is experiencing, because it's like a no exit situation. I mean, you sit with yourself. This is it. This is the end of the line. And so I remember on a retreat, I'll tell one story recently. I remember on a retreat where someone sort of said to me, my mind just won't stop. I don't know how to relax. Tell me what I have to do. And I'd already given out plenty of guided meditations, plenty of practices. And I said, I don't have anything else. This is it. Stay with it. Stay with it. And they got angry with me because they thought that they wanted more from me. And I sort of said, this is your practice. This is not, you haven't come on my retreat. This is your practice now. Don't make me the authority here. I'm alongside you. I will practice with you. I'll hold the space. I'll keep you safe. But would you be willing to stay with your moment-to-moment experience and just trust what's emerging? And it was pretty much down to the wire. I thought, I don't know if this person, they're looking pretty, I checked in with them. I mean, they were safe enough, but I wasn't sure if they were going to stay with the process, and a few hours later, we came back to another meditation. Their whole face had completely changed, and they were like absolutely relaxed and easy. They'd had a big kind of release of tears and strong emotions, and their realization was that they'd actually been out of relationship with themselves for so long, and that there was this resistance to just let go, and really come home to themselves. And I see each person in their own way duplicating that process when they go deep into mindfulness practice. That the graciousness of their own heart seems to pull them in, and it's not an easy process, which is why basically, you just got to stay with it, keep trusting, keep surrendering, keep safe, take care of yourself. Don't push yourself to any extremes. No need to, just be very gentle, and the process will pull you in. So that's kind of like, I trust that. I still go through that over and over. So I'm not exempt from that, and I don't feel that there's any conclusion to this practice. It does get easier in a way as you get more trusting of presence and letting go. But the journey, the human life cycle from birth to death is that we're always moving into something new, some new territory, some new place, even bodily. And so I think that that it's an ongoing practice, and there's a tremendous beauty in sharing it together.
It's like breathing. You're never done. It's something you do. It sounds like. I usually ask, like, what would you recommend for like one piece of advice or piece of wisdom for entrepreneurs out there? You offered so much, though. I don't know. If is there one thing that we haven't said that you would like to say?
Yeah, I do, which I remind myself of as well. Is that you're already successful. You were born, job done. You're already successful. Everything else is a bonus. So for myself and other driven entrepreneurs, I think it's really useful to realize we are all okay. We've done what we needed to do, which was be born, be here, be human, and everything else is a bonus. So enjoy it. And last thing is, remember you're not wrong. And as much as possible, allow the truth of you to emerge, which is that you are okay. So both those dimensions, you're not wrong, and this happens, after a certain amount of practice, trusting the process, as Stephen said. Realize and understand you are okay, totally okay as you are.
Well received. Thank you. Is there some resources that people can check out, either your website or a book or anything at all that you could leave us with?
Yep, there's plenty of resources. So should I say the name of the website, or will you send it out? Will you put it in comments or something?
I'll do both, actually. If you'd like to say it for people on the audio, and then I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Got it. Thank you. So the from the workplace point of view, the main website is Mfameri, wfo.com.au. So that's mwfo.com.au. And we are an Australian and New Zealand-based business, but we can offer the training digitally and via Zoom and the like anywhere. There's also an online school community, which we're just starting, David, but I don't know the name of the URL. I can't remember the name of the URL of that, but that's got some nice resources as well.
Okay.
May I just add, we have a network of trainers who are affiliated with us, about 60 or so throughout Australia and New Zealand. So anyone in Australia and New Zealand who's wanting in-person training, we can offer that. But worldwide, we offer online training. So, we've got a physical presence in Australia and New Zealand. I'm based in Wellington, New Zealand. Karl's in Australia. But you can reach us through our website. We also have a New Zealand website, mwfo.co.nz. So, and you can directly, if you email, we will get it, so people can directly contact us, Karl or me, and we're very responsive.
Great. And for book lovers out there, is there one book above them all or top of mind that you would recommend?
I think I enjoy Amishi Jha's the book called Peak Mind, which she's a neuroscientist based in Florida, and she's written a marvelous, very accessible book on mindfulness. So That's a good one in terms of people who actually really want to get their hands into the soil and practice mindfulness. It's not full of lots of philosophy and deep wisdom. It's actually, but there is a lot of wisdom, and but it's actually very practical, very very practice orientated.
And my recommendation would be for anyone who's interested is make a start. So look online anywhere really for mindfulness course or a mindfulness workshop, whether it be online and in person. Commit to that, go along and test drive it. See how it is for you.
Yeah. Okay. I think I will. Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for seeing me and accepting me. And thank you for a wonderful conversation. I wish you the best.
I really appreciate it, David. Thank you for the opportunity. And I love how we dove in the deep end to begin with. That makes it very rich, and appreciate you starting the conversation that way. It's really great. Thank you.
Likewise, you seemed capable.
Thanks so much.